Hello and welcome to 99.1 WIUX LP Bloomington. My name is Connor Wright.
I'm Gavin Gorski.
And you're listening to GAVCON 5. And today we have a special guest with us, City Council candidate David Wolfe.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you for being on the
Thanks
show.
for being on. Do you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, sure. My name is David Wolfe. I'm a third-year student here at IU, running for City Council in the 6th District, which is the central part of the city, basically the entire IU core campus. So, very happy to be here, and thank you guys so much for having me.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being on the show. This is a lot of fun. Had a lot of different guests this semester. First question is, why did you decide to run in the first place? And what drew you to local politics rather than other areas of politics?
Yeah, that's a good question, and certainly one that I get asked all the time. I guess a couple things about that. When I moved to Bloomington in the fall of 2020, it became immediately clear over time that this city, despite being nearly half student, has very few, if any, students representing the city. And that's true on boards and commissions. That's true on the city council. Obviously, the mayor is not a student. I'm not suggesting the mayor should be a student, but
that would be pretty funny, actually.
There's a whole Parks and Rec plot line about it, right? But we just don't have very many students who are there to represent the student voice. So when I was looking at it, I thought it was time to change that, because student concerns can be best affected at a city and county level. So that's kind of what got me into it, and the policy is really interesting. So that's kind of what really led me that direction.
We were just talking about this before the show, like the median age in the city versus the median voting age.
Oh, yeah.
What were those numbers again?
Well, I mean, it depends on the area of the city, right? But, the city is slightly over 80,000 people in population, right? Indiana University student population is somewhere hovering around 40, right?
I think it's about 45.
Yeah, it changes every now and then, but we hover between 40 and 45,000, and that's people who are here in Bloomington. So the median age is somewhere in the range of 18 to 23, right? Now, of course, that includes grad students, so it might be a little bit north of that. But the bottom line is the median age here is a college student. And the median voting age is not. If you look down at the people who actually vote in elections, for a variety of reasons, students don't vote in local elections. Part of it is that the state government has found ways to make it really hard for students to vote. For example, election day for the primary this year is in the middle of exam week. So if you have an exam that you're stressing about, going to the polls for a local election with candidates that you may have not heard of is a tall order, right? Mm-hmm. But there are some other reasons too, right? There are students here at IU who attend university, or whose parents live in the surrounding states: Michigan, Ohio, Wisconsin, Minnesota, even Kentucky. If you think about the politics in those states, your vote can matter a lot more in certain elections than it can here, right? Ohio is going to have a big Senate election in 2024. The presidential elections in Michigan and Wisconsin and Minnesota are a huge deal. This year, Kentucky has a huge gubernatorial election with Andy Beshear. So it's difficult to get a student voice, but I think this is the year that we can do it, and hopefully get 2 of them. Connor, I'm looking at you.
That's a lot of pressure on me. I'm trying my best. But, some days I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm definitely going to win. And then other days I'm like, no chance. Hopefully I get 25% of the vote. Depends on the day.
You only need a plurality.
33.4%.
That's true.
And I could theoretically win.
Yes.
Which is pretty bad if you think about it. But it could happen. Yeah, so what is your campaign doing to try to engage students specifically?
That's a good question. So, I would start by saying that we are talking to student issues, right? I spent a lot of time over the last year or so talking to students about what is really important to them. And it falls into a few different categories. The biggest one which is actually an issue that spans student and non-student, is housing. It is way too expensive to live in this city.
Yeah, I've heard that from everybody.
Right.
Whether they own a home, whether they're a renter, just recently a renter, everyone's like, yeah, that is a problem.
Well, I mean, if you want just an anecdotal, piece of evidence for how crazy this crisis is in Bloomington, when I got my off-campus apartment, my rent is higher than my parents' mortgage on the west side of Carmel, Indiana. That should scare some people, I think.
You just say Carmel, Indiana. You don't say West Side.
Right. I mean,
That's
but
the
West
whole
Side.
it's new housing up there, right?
Yeah.
It's a high demand market, and they moved there 2013, 14, and here in Bloomington, I'm paying a higher rent price.
Yeah.
And I'm 20 years old, right? This is a pretty crazy environment we're living in. So, housing is a big one. The other issue, though, is bicycle and pedestrian safety. Students are disproportionately more likely to walk, bike, scooter, or skateboard to class, to work in this city.
Yeah.
And despite that, it's very unsafe
Or
to do
take
all
the
four.
bus, for that matter.
Yep, public transit's another one. That was going to be the third point. We're not focusing as much in these areas as I think we need to be as a city, and so it's going to take someone who's speaking to student issues to really make a difference in those areas.
Yeah. You want to talk about public transit? You said those.
Yeah, I mean, no, public transit's a big one too, right? I mean, IU students rely on Bloomington Transit for a lot of their off-campus activities. When the tragic attack happened with Bloomington Transit, or at a Bloomington Transit stop earlier this year, when I was talking to students, one of the things that became immediately clear was that the Bloomington Transit system can unlock a student's ability to get involved, not just on our campus, but in our community. Students work at local Bloomington businesses. They volunteer at local nonprofits. They shop at our businesses. To get involved, you need to be able to have a clear way to get off campus. And the Bloomington bus system is a really big key in that process. So we need to be, we really need to be funding it, and we need to be active and listening to the community about how we can make it better, which are two things that is not happening at the degree I think it needs to right now.
Yeah, and the crazy thing about Bloomington Transit is yesterday I was at the State of the City address from Mayor Hamilton, and I learned that Bloomington Transit is the highest ridership per capita in the state of Indiana.
Oh, really? I did not. I was not aware of that. That's really interesting.
Yeah, so when you think about it, it's like, what other city is going to compete with us? Indianapolis? No chance.
Right.
Their bus system is not very good, and no one uses it, and there are way more people that live there.
And yet, what's funny about that though is their investment portfolio when it comes to their bus system is still better than ours is, and they're getting less ridership.
Yeah,
is what you're saying. Looking at what they've done with the Red Line. I went to school right on the Red Line, and looking at what they're doing and seeing how that line could change that area of the city is a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
So Bloomington should be taking those kind of steps to make that kind of investment. It may not have to look exactly like the Red Line, but getting cross-city transit, getting transit to Ivy Tech Bloomington, which is something that I cannot believe is not the case, would be a big deal for IU students who are taking courses at both IU Bloomington and Ivy Tech. So, these are all big policy positions that no one is talking about right now to the degree that we should.
Yeah, I think a big reason we get the ridership is because of students.
For sure.
We rely on the buses a lot more than most other people do. And so, kind of a reason why it exists and works as well as it can.
Definitely no. I mean, public transit, you just go onto 3rd Street and watch the buses, how often they're going up and down that street, or I guess really only one way on that street.
Just down the street.
Right, yeah, just down the street, no up. But,
or 7th Street, you just see a massive people there.
Right.
They're just always getting on. Or 10th Street, too. It's like right around the library and Wright Quad and Hodge Hall.
And we saw in August of 2021, by the way, when the IU bus system got overcrowded due to low staffing problems, or due to some staffing problems in the IU bus system, that was a real pain for a lot of students. Time to get to class went up dramatically. So this is both an IU and a Bloomington problem, but it's at the core of both of them are students. So it's going to take some pretty good policy to fix these kinds of things.
Yeah. What is your plan after graduation if you are elected? I know you've talked about going to grad school a little bit, But what happens after that? Also, what are you studying in grad school?
Yeah, no, it's a good question, and it's funny. I was just home a couple days ago, or I was just back with my at my parents' house, and I get asked that question every time I go and see them, and the answer is still I don't know. No, I'm kidding. There is a degree of I still don't know exactly what direction I want to take, but I'm looking at law school here in Bloomington, looking at potentially pairing that with a master's in either public affairs or business administration, trying to look at how can I gain more knowledge about how the world works, right? And I think that has applications here in Bloomington and in the world in general. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. But of course, it could change. And even my interests change all the time. So we'll see.
Yeah, and you're a junior right now, right?
Yeah. So I'm in my third year. So I have a whole other year of undergrad to go after
Okay,
this.
so you'd only be on the city council for like half a year after graduating law school, theoretically.
I would be. That's right. Yeah, I would be. I would enter the council if I'm lucky enough. Would be it would be January of 24.
Assuming you run again,
right?
What would you do after that if you ran for a second term, or would you? Do you know?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know. I haven't. I'm so focused on just winning this election in May and then again in November that I haven't even really thought about it. So it's not. It hasn't even been on my mind. Although the things that are on my mind really is as we are still campaigning and as we're still working from now to May to November, we have kind of shifted our strategy a little bit. It's no longer, we're not going explicitly door to door. We're now very focused on talking to people about how we can implement a lot of the policies that we have proposed. So we're gathering student leaders, we're gathering community leaders, and just talking about some of these things. I don't have an opponent in the Democratic primary right now. And so using that to our advantage and really using this time to talk about issues rather than fight with each other about whatever comes up, that's an important thing. So
don't have a Republican opponent either right now.
Right now, but that can
it's
change
too late
anytime.
to have a Democratic opponent, but
True.
you could get a Republican one
for sure,
or
an independent.
They'd be facing steep odds.
Who knows?
You
never
get
know.
the most student-heavy district in the city.
It is the most student, and that's
we all
actually
know how students like to vote.
That is actually one of the things that's so cool about this district is just how student it is. When the redistricting committee or commission sent back its map to the council this year, or I guess last year now, one of the big debating points on the council was whether or not there should be a district that is entirely made up of students. And I know, Connor, I know you've looked at that before. But the district that they created for the 6th district is so student heavy. It contains nearly every residence hall on campus. It contains a lot of Greek housing, not as much as I know your district does, Connor,
I got
but
the bulk of it.
you've got the vast majority of Greek housing, but we do have a good number, right? We have a lot of the off-campus Greek housing. So I mean, that's a good number of students who are there. It's hard to throw out percentages, but it's mostly students, right? Vast majority.
The number
of
I've heard
students.
is 90%, and I might have made that up in my own head.
Yeah, it's hard to know too because the way we calculate that is we look at the units in the district that are renting, and we kind of try and make an assumption about whether or not they're students.
Assume they're students.
But the assumption we made is that yes, more than 90% of the district is student. So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Wow. And that's not the map Steve Volan helped come up with, or is it a revised version of that, or
was
for
it
the
one of the
redistricting?
Proposals from the committee?
So the commission sent back. There was a redistricting commission that the council created years ago, and they filled spots for this term. They sent back the map that is official. This is the map that we have.
Okay.
Steve Volan, who represents the 6th district currently, proposed a different map after the commission sent back its findings.
Yeah.
His map would have been just the campus, so it would have included no precincts that went outside of IU Bloomington, the core campus. So that district or that map did not move forward, but the map we got is still very student heavy in the 6th district, which is a very exciting proposition.
I don't really think it made it I don't think either one would have been worse or better, because maybe it would have been hard to get a student to run if it was only the campus. But there's so many students that live in the district still that it's really, really easy to get a student to run.
Yeah.
Relatively speaking.
Right, relatively. That's the key word. Relatively speaking. That's exactly.
If it was really that easy, we'd have more than one person running right now. But relatively, you have to add in relatively speaking because normally we have 0 students running.
Just to shift gears slightly, David, I follow you on Twitter.
Oh, great. That's almost never a good thing when someone says, I follow you on Twitter. It's always a dangerous thing.
No, it's good. It's good. I see you post about or you tweet about IU women's basketball pretty frequently.
Huge women's basketball fan.
How long have you been a fan?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So my grandparents on my mom's side they all went to the University of Tennessee, right? Huge women's basketball history there with Pat Summitt and the Lady Volunteers. So I had been a UTK women's basketball fan for a good amount of time. So when I got to IU, I wasn't really an active fan of IU women's basketball. But in that first year, I started paying a little bit more attention because they were killing it. And they went on that long run in the NCAA tournament. So when they played their first game in my second year, I was sold on being a huge fan. So now I'm at basically every home game. I'm watching every away game on TV. There's a player on the team. She's in her first year. Her name is Yarden Gerzon, and she's from Ra'anana, Israel, which is a city I've been to. And it's just so cool seeing a Jewish Israeli player on the team. People seeing Israeli flags flying around in the stadium. I wear a shirt that says Indiana in Hebrew. And so it's just so cool to be able to go to those games and see that. But yeah, huge fan. That's a long
cool.
way of saying I'm a huge fan.
Aren't they coming out with some new merch or something?
Yeah, no, the NIL store. This is something that I have been screaming on Twitter. If you follow me on Twitter, you probably know that I've been screaming for a long time that the IU athletics department needs to get new merch out quite frequently. Those jackets that they wore, I believe it was last season during the selection show, they're not publicly available. I still want one. I haven't forgotten. So if Scott Dulce is listening, I still want one. But the NIL store just released a Yarden Gerzon Shalosh, which is the number 3 in Hebrew, which they shout every time she scores a 3-pointer. They just released a shirt with that's branded to Yarden. So
cool.
I will be buying 1 or 2 or maybe 3 here in the coming.
Well, you have to buy 3
days.
obviously.
Well, I mean, you never know. If they play 3 games back to back, I'm that's the shirt I'm wearing to every game.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's just what we should all expect. Before she had the NIL store sale for that, I actually made a shirt that had, again, in Hebrew on the front said Indiana, and on the back had her name and number, because I was just such a big fan. Because it's just so cool to see an Israeli player there. So, yeah, it was really cool.
Do you think we're the best team in the country?
Do I think we're the best team in the country?
We're ranked number 2 right now.
Number
for
2
the record.
overall. It's something. South Carolina is a really good team, right? You watch South Carolina. I mean, they are so dominant, right? But I think we can compete with them. We have to play in the Big Ten. They don't. And Big Ten's women's basketball league conference this year has been pretty extraordinary.
We got Maryland, Ohio State,
Iowa. Yeah,
Indiana.
Caitlin Clark. So I mean, just South Carolina, I don't know, has had the test that we have. And we've beaten all those teams that Connor just named right there. So
and more.
We
beat all the teams.
That's true,
except for Michigan State once.
Right. So
we were without some of our best players.
That's true. But this is actually funny though. Of all the games I thought we'd lose this season, Michigan State really.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand losing one to Caitlin Clark and the Hawkeyes in Iowa City, but I mean, which I guess we'll find out on Sunday.
We haven't done anything yet. That's
true.
what we're saying right now.
But hey, outright winners of the Big Ten champion. That's not nothing right there. But we've still got things to go.
Yeah.
So I'll keep watching, I think is my point.
Man, I'm excited to get a tournament game here in Bloomington.
Oh, yeah, I've already bought tickets. They already did the ticket request.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You already got some? I really need to do that.
Oh, yeah.
They're probably going to sell out, too, so I should really get on
Yeah,
that.
they actually moved. There was an announcement I saw that they changed the seating breakdown. Like usually the way that those work is you can reserve seats below a certain row, and then everything else is general admission. They actually just changed it to say that I believe the entire lower bowl is now reserved seating, and the general admission is now in the balconies. So clearly a lot of people requested tickets. So after the show, Connor's actually going to be going on Twitter really quick to the IU ticket office. I need to get seats. I need to get seats.
Here. Yeah, I'm like, I don't want to be general admission. I have to get there so early so that I'm not sitting at the very top.
Yeah, it'll be an amazing environment, though, I'll tell you. I'm so excited. I really am. It'll be amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Grace Berger in her last game in Assembly Hall.
Yeah.
Being able to have that be a NCAA tournament game, hopefully as a number 1 seed, that's unbelievable. So
it'd take a miracle for us to not be a number 1 seed.
I'm knocking on wood.
Well, the opposite of a miracle. Yeah. I also think that there's a lot of things that IU wears, because you were talking about the jackets that they were wearing last time. There's a lot of things that the athletic department has that they don't sell, and some of them are so cool.
I know. Every time the practice squad for the women's team sits right in the lower benches on the opposite side of the team benches, right?
Yeah.
And they're always wearing their jackets, which is how you can know they're part of the team. And I've actually sat down near them a couple of times. And they're hilarious and they're awesome, but I want one of those jackets. I don't know how much money IU Athletics requires for a candy stripe women's basketball jacket, but whatever it is, I'll pay it.
I wonder if it's Adidas's fault that they're not selling them. Because aren't they
They are.
Supplier?
They're the supplier.
Well, I'd be fine blaming Adidas. That's fine with me. Release the jackets. Give us the jackets.
I don't know whose fault it is. Somebody's not doing something that they should be doing.
Because isn't our contract to them expiring soon? I think I
don't know.
I've heard that.
I would be shocked if it doesn't get renewed.
I don't know.
We've always been Adidas school. It'd be crazy if we just weren't.
I don't know. We'll have to see.
Yeah. Well, also, I don't know if they sell those pink basketball jerseys either that they're wearing.
I put out a tweet about that too. That I'll pay anything for the pink basketball.
One of those too.
Yeah, no.
Or any of their soccer jerseys. Gosh darn it, they don't sell soccer jerseys anywhere.
Yeah, that's actually that's funny because they don't sell the soccer jerseys anywhere. I played soccer in high school and I played for a long time as a kid, and a lot of the guys who went to go play on the IU soccer team were people I had either played with or against when I played for Indiana Fire up in Indy. And I'm always so jealous of the IU athletics gear that they get to wear in their games.
Yeah.
They've really moved on from that club soccer gear that, is mass-produced. So I'm always jealous, but yeah.
You're also a Taylor Swift fan?
Huge Taylor Swift fan, yeah.
What's your favorite album?
Oh, it'd be like asking someone to choose a favorite kid. I don't know if I can choose a favorite album.
Everyone's got a favorite kid. They just don't want to say it.
Well, okay, Connor. Well, I mean, it's a tough call. I think Red is an amazing album. I think over time her writing has gotten better, but sometimes, as the writing gets more poetic and more meaningful, I think the actual tune of the song is less engaging. I mean, still really good, but there's nothing like Love Story back in the Fearless time. That classic song. And
I just started playing in my head immediately.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You can hear the intro to the song whenever someone says it. So I don't know, but I have her concert tickets in May.
Oh wow!
And had to fight people for them. Not really, but I'm quite excited. So maybe I'll be able to say better what's my favorite album after I see them live again.
That's no joke.
Yeah, well, no, it is no. I tell you, I was against Ticketmaster as an institution before the Taylor Swift ticket debacle, but now I'm radicalized. I want to take down this corrupt Ticketmaster system.
How did you end up getting the tickets?
Well, they had a.
No, his parents work for Ticketmaster.
No. His parents work for Ticketmaster. Nice. No, that is not true. That is incorrect. But it would have been a great story. Wouldn't have? No,
You'd be like, I just have my dad reserve them before they're available.
No, yeah, that would be nice, but unfortunately not the case. No, the the way she ran her ticket sale, you had to request a code beforehand. If you bought Taylor Swift merch before the ticket sale, which of course I did because I needed Taylor Swift merch to wear, you got what they referred to, I believe, as a boost in the ticket sales. Well, many of the people who bought merch and got a ticket code were still screwed out of tickets by this corrupt institution of Ticketmaster. So after the main sale was over, they did a ticket request system where you could basically put in what level of tickets you wanted to buy. So I was able to request the ability to try and get tickets that way, and I got lucky. It was a lottery system.
Oh, okay.
So I put in, I want 2 tickets at this level, and I got them. So I'm pretty excited.
Nice.
So if you'll be in Nashville on Sunday, May whatever, for her concert.
Don't think that
in
will
Nashville.
Yeah.
That's gonna be cool.
Well, I mean, there's no indie show, so I had to drive somewhere. Nashville's not.
It's a shame. There's a large music center near Indianapolis, in my hometown.
Near Indianapolis.
In my hometown of Noblesville.
Ruoff?
Yeah.
The Ruoff Music Center?
You can fit a lot of Taylor Swift fans in there.
That's true, but not as many as you can fit in Nissan Stadium. But
Well, I don't
good
know
try, Ruoff.
How many can fit in Nissan Stadium?
I'm sure somewhere in the range of 50,000 to 60,000.
Because I'm sure you. I'm
Look
just
that
looking-
up. Look
I'm
up
looking
Nissan Stadium.
I'm looking up Ruoff
Let's fact check this real
Music
quick.
Center.
Well, Ruoff is outdoor.
Yeah, so you can.
Yeah, but but the actual structure of the stadium doesn't actually allow for much at Ruoff because it's an amphitheater, right?
Yeah, but like you would have a bunch of people in the field. You can fit
True. Yeah, but it's not all
tens
about
of thousands
people.
of people there.
Okay, well, look up what's the what the capacity of Ruoff is.
That's This is 24,790.
Okay, now look up Nissan Stadium.
That's the seating capacity.
That's a seating capacity.
Yeah.
Does that include the lawns?
No, I don't think so. That's
Oh.
a separate thing.
Wow, that's actually a lot of people.
Because I know they've had some of the biggest concerts in the country
Really?
there.
Oh,
Huh.
Yeah.
the things you learn.
You also go to Red Rock
On
Amphitheater in
GAVCON 5.
Colorado, and you can fit a lot of people there too. It's just outside Denver. All right, what place? Nissan Stadium?
Nissan Stadium. I have no idea how many they can actually fit in there. I would bet it'd be somewhere in the range of 50 to 60.
69,143.
Wow.
They should go have that in Michigan Stadium, the football stadium there.
The big house?
Yeah.
Oh, that would be something.
You could get, there's like 100,000 people there.
Oh yeah, play Mr. Brightside in classic Michigan tradition.
Yeah, if I were a musician, I would just do a college stadium tour.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
All right, when are you coming to Assembly Hall?
yeah,
Memorial Stadium, right?
Yeah.
Put Taylor Swift in there.
yeah. Hey, well, that would be awesome.
That would be awesome.
That would be great. I guarantee you.
I would stand outside the stadium and listen for free. That'd be great.
If Taylor Swift is listening, if you do a show at Memorial Stadium, I promise I will get enough people in there.
If Taylor Swift is listening, we've made it.
Yeah, it's a big moment for GAVCON 5.
This is unbelievable. Yeah, all right. That's a good stopping point. We can take our first break, and then we'll be right back for more content and politics stuff and whatever the heart desires. Thanks for listening to GAVCON 5. We'll be right back. Welcome back to 99.1 WIUX LP Bloomington. You're still listening to GAVCON 5, and we're still here with David Wolfe.
Thank you for still being on the show. Thank you
Yeah,
for not
haven't
leaving.
scared you away with any hard questions, any talk about Taylor Swift, anything like that.
No, hey, I'll always talk about Taylor Swift. Although the hardest question so far has definitely been, "What's your favorite album?" So,
Wow, that was
Yeah.
that was off the dome too from Gavin.
We're done
Not
with the
even on our
softball
document. So. Yeah, I don't know how I'd answer that if someone asked me my favorite. I don't even know the names of most albums from my favorite bands anyway. If someone asked me, I'd be like, I don't know. It's too
See,
hard.
that's kind of a problem.
Is it though?
If you don't know the names of the albums, yeah. How could
But
you-
like, I don't like music in that way. I'm not
come on, man.
like there are good songs, and like you can compile all those good songs into an album that's called Greatest Hits, and then I can listen to that without having to listen to all the bad ones on the albums.
All right.
Unless it's like
All right.
Rumors by Fleetwood Mac, then the whole thing's just all really good songs.
I guess that's fair.
Yeah. All right. Are we moving on now?
Yeah, let's move on.
All right. I think are you still part of IUSG, or is that a past
yeah, so I've stayed in that position. So, it's
Okay.
Director of City Relations.
city relations? Yeah, I can't remember exactly what that's called. What is that position like, and what are the key differences between how city councils run and how IUSG is run.
That's a good question. So in my job for IUSG, all right, IU student government in regards to city relations kind of has like three main goals, right? And the overarching goal that kind of encapsulates those three is increase student engagement with local government. So that is expanding voter registration, student voter registration and engagement. It is representing the student voice in front of the city council. And it's also getting students a voice on the ever more important city boards and commissions that have for so long lacked a student voice. Right now, I personally serve on the parking commission, and seeing how much work goes from these commissions to the council is a very big deal. So one of the things we did this year is we intentionally found students who are interested in different areas of policy, and we got them to apply for these spots and worked with the mayor's office and different city council members to try and get them nominated and confirmed to these positions, appointed to these positions. So this year we have students serving that we've shepherded through on the parking commission, traffic commission, commission on sustainability, and a few others. I think we just got one on bicycle and pedestrian safety. So we've added more and more students to these commissions to try and get a student voice in these key areas. So that's really what that job has mostly consisted of. In regards to your second question, what are the differences? There are so many differences, right? I mean, at its heart, at its core, IU student government is very focused on advocacy. Advocating for student needs, whether that be to the university, to the state government, which so often ignores student needs, by the way, to city governments, to the IU administration, and so on and so forth. And so there aren't very many things from a policy point of view that can get done in student government that will have a direct effect on students. Now, we can do things with money that will help students. IU student government has done things in the past. Like, there's the Plan B initiative on campus this year. IU student government funded Plan B emergency contraceptives for students. But in terms of like parking or bike safety, it's really hard for student government to really get involved in those things. That's part of the reason why I wanted to run for city council, because the city council can.
Yeah.
Right. So those are the core differences.
And what does the parking commission do, really? Because I've heard about it a lot, but I don't really know what goes on in those meetings and what you guys accomplish.
That's a good question too. Parking actually dominates a lot of our city conversations. Right now, in most areas of the city, if you want to build something, there is a mandate that you build a certain number of parking spaces per square foot or per bedroom or whatever. A lot of us on the parking commission have been working in the next zoning cycle to eliminate those, because parking mandates often mean that we're building more parking than we need. So that's one area. That's one example. The other thing too is, all of the meters around the city, it's all the policy surrounding that. How much should we charge for parking? What's a reasonable rate to park in the city? It's about ticketing. How can we ensure that that we're enforcing parking violations? One of the things that I've been pretty outspoken about is that our city is not doing a good enough job enforcing parking violations. I have both personal anecdotal evidence for that, and I have friendly evidence evidence via friends from that. We're not ticketing when people are not paying for parking, which basically means that parking is cheaper, right? So we're not accomplishing our goals. So those are the kind of issues the Parking Commission looks at. And I've been serving on that since the beginning of the school year, I think. And it's been a good opportunity to see a lot of those issues up front and in your face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
You want to join a commission, Connor? You should.
I'm on the environmental commission already.
Oh, there you go. See, we have a student on the environmental commission as well.
Yeah, several students on the environmental commission.
Great.
Or had several. I haven't seen some of them in a little bit. So they may not be there anymore. I don't know. Yeah. And the chair of the environmental commission was a grad student, but he just graduated. So now he's not.
Yeah, I know that a lot of the commissions around sustainability and environment have been very student heavy for a good period of time. Same with, I mean, bike pedestrian safety has a couple of students who are actively engaged. You know, in a city that is so dominated by cycling, when it comes to like the Little 500, we should have outstanding bicycle and pedestrian safety. Right now, we don't. So I do think we need to look at creative ways to get better bicycle safety, whether that be you know, more dedicated bike lanes on roads, or in I'm a big fan of my view is that we should develop more protected bike lanes. So it's harder for a car to run over a bicyclist. I know way too many friends who have gotten hurt on bicycles via a car. So
Yeah, I know people have gotten hit too.
A few too.
I always see people parking in the bike lanes, like on 3rd
I've
Street.
seen that.
It's
I've seen
like,
on
it's just
3rd
like,
Street?
what's
Oh, yeah,
going
yeah.
on? Yeah.
I've seen it on 7th too. Someone in the protected bike lane.
yeah, no, and you know, and they've made great strides on protecting that on 7th Street, but on 3rd Street it is virtually unenforced. The other day I was there and I actually saw an IU police car in the bike lane. So if our own city and school administrations are not respecting a bike lane, we clearly need to fix some things, right?
Yeah.
You know, there are a couple of policy proposals from other cities that we could consider implementing here. One thought would be just create a line, you know, a barrier between the bike lane and the street, make it protected on 3rd Street. Another option would be strict ticketing if you block a bike lane. Make it a very costly thing to do. People should not be stopping on 3rd Street in the middle of the bike lane. I know a lot of people get dropped off along that street. We can actually, the city could take steps when we develop 3rd Street to create dedicated drop-off zones if we want. If we deem that important as a city, let's make it safer.
Yeah.
And if we believe, as I do, that cars in the middle of a bike lane is dramatically unsafe for everyone involved, then there should be repercussions for parking in a bike lane in the form of a ticket. So
Yeah.
Totally agree on that. And yeah, it definitely is people that are like picking up someone who has a class in those buildings. But like there are on the other side of the street, there are those like
There are parking spots
there.
Yeah.
I don't get why they don't just like there's not that many of them, but anyway.
yeah, you know, there are really interesting thoughts on, you know, 3rd Street is a poorly developed street, right? One thought would be to have one lane that during certain hours of the day is only for campus and city buses. You know, that corridor on 3rd Street is so student heavy and bus heavy in the mornings. I walk by there all of the time to get to my classes on the south side of campus. Got to tell you, you know, buses are going down that street all of the time. So why not from, you know, 9 to 11 or from 3 to 5 or whenever the most heavy bus times there is, why not take one of those lanes and restrict it to just the bus for that time? New York does it and it works great.
Yeah.
DC does it at certain times of the day. There are other cities that do this. It's just going to take someone bold to say, yeah, let's try it. And if we can do it, then we might have a safer environment to walk and bike in.
Yeah. And I've seen on Dunn Street, I think, I can't remember that, or Woodlawn. That was Woodlawn Street. Like there was a car parked in the bike lane once, and a police officer was like driving by me and went straight by the car.
Yep.
That I had to go around and didn't do anything about it.
Well,
I was like, what? Like,
on Dunn and Lincoln, this is something that a lot of cities are starting to do that I really like. You know, one of the concerns with building protected bike lanes is that there is an expense to it. And that's true. Yeah. There is a pretty big expense to it. Mm-hmm. But what if we had the parking, the cars, and be the protection for the bike lane? So we have a lane of driving, a lane of parking, and then the bike lane, so that the cars, when they're parked, you know, if a driver wants to hit a bicyclist or, you know, inadvertently is going to try and hit a bicyclist, they have to hit a car first. It would make it dramatically safer. New York has had a lot of success in this area. There's a think tank, a nonprofit up in New York called Transportation Alternatives, and they have done just some amazing research on the effectiveness of these systems. It's just going to take someone in Bloomington to say, yeah, that research looks great. Let's create a pilot program. Let's try it. Let's try it in one street, see how it works. And over the next 5 years, let's evaluate. Right now, we're not seeing that enough. We're thinking very. We're thinking in terms of big steps in certain areas and no steps in others, right? The 7 line is a great thing. I'm a huge fan of the 7 line, that protected bike lane all the way down 7th. The no stop signs as you go down. That's a big project. Now let's look at small projects, because we did the big thing. We can have bold, small ideas, right? Like bold and small are not opposites of each other in this case, and so we can be strategic about this.
Yeah. The only concern I could see was someone opening their car door and then
I was thinking about that too.
There is, so what you would do. One thing you would do, but I mean that's the same thing though with a car, right?
Yeah.
When you have parallel parking, you can still open your car door with a car coming right by.
Yeah.
And
or a cyclist.
or a cyclist.
I ride down the roads
so
all the time.
and don't get me wrong, I am not a I'm not a pure idealist here, right? I'm a realist in that there will be. No matter how safe we design our city, there are going to be some accidents, right?
Yeah.
It's about how can we minimize that, and
you just want to make the accidents less
prevalent. Less deadly, less prevalent. So we need to start developing to make that happen. We're not. So, and Bloomington has a history, by the way, and IU both have histories of waiting for a problem to happen before we fix it. In the name of something being a solution to something that isn't a problem. That's actually rarely true. The best example is 2016-17, I believe it was, that IU made the decision to build the pedestrian pads that sit on 10th Street across from the School of Public and Environmental Affairs and across from Kelly. From what I am told, I wasn't here at the time, but from what I am told, those pedestrian pads were put in place because there were major accidents that occurred on that street with pedestrians. So we waited for a problem to happen before we fixed it. Let me tell you one area of the city where there's going to be a problem and we can fix it beforehand. 17th. Connor, this is in your district.
Yeah.
That spot where Eagleson stops and David Baker starts, that little L, or that not L, but you know what I'm saying, that little the bend up on 17th.
Are you talking about where the frat row is, basically?
Yeah, the one that divides. Yeah, 17th divides those two. Yeah. Those two, the extension from the main part of the street. There should be a pedestrian pad. That street is so wide, and there's no reason for it to be that wide. So let's start fixing problems before someone dies. I mean, and that's a painful way of saying it, but maybe that's where we should be focusing our attention.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just gave you a whole policy point, Connor. You can run on that.
Want me to just start writing this down?
Yeah, no, write all the Greek houses. Hey, I want a pedestrian pad on 17th. I'll be there right behind you.
I agree with that too, because I'm always when I go to the little 5-track, I'm always riding on up Jordan and then turning left on 17th,
up Eagleson.
Up Eagleson, then left on 17th.
Yeah,
and it's so hard to. I mean, if there were a pedestrian path, I could probably use that too. Like a crosswalk. That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, it would sit in the middle of a crosswalk, right? So, you cross a little bit, pedestrian pad. And what that would do is it would allow people to cross quicker because you don't have to look both ways both times. You can look one way one time, cross, and look the other way, and then cross. Yeah. So, I mean, these are easy steps that just require some strategic thinking.
Yeah. And the thing about all this is, I think Bloomingtonians are mostly decent about being aware of cyclists and pedestrians. But I've noticed once we have sporting events happening, the quality of driving drops by tenfold. And because there's a on Dunn Street, there's a crosswalk that you press the button and the lights start flashing.
Yeah.
Normally that's fine. People are like, yeah, I'm not going to kill someone by just barreling through here. I don't need to do that today. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm just going to class. But on sporting events, people who are, I don't know where they're from, probably around Indianapolis, but I could make some guesses. Probably from around Indianapolis, maybe in Indianapolis, just barrel straight through there. And I'm standing, I need to cross, guys.
I'm right here.
The lights are flashing. What do you think that means?
Yeah, I mean, one area of this that I always like to say is, I don't, I have a car. I don't blame drivers for the craziness of this thing, right?
Well, I do, but
I respect that view, but a lot of drivers don't actually know how fast they're going most of the time, and
it is hard to lose perspective because you're like, oh, I'm only going 40 miles an hour down,
right,
like College Avenue or Walnut Street. Like, that doesn't seem very fast.
Sure,
which is because the street is so huge.
That's exactly
like
right.
You're already going 10 miles an hour over the speed limit.
Yeah, exactly. So people actually will change their driving speed based on what's in front of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the best example I always give is you have all these students whose parents live in Indianapolis, right? And they're driving
or
80,
right around there.
Yeah. Well, they're driving 80 miles an hour for most of that drive down, right? 465s, people in this 55, you can get away with 70. I do it every time. You get
Everybody does it every time.
Well, right.
And I swear,
even
if you're going 55, you're going to get rear-ended.
That's exactly right. So on 465 for sure. So, and then as you go down, is it like 67 and then 39, it's 70, 80 miles an hour traffic.
Yeah.
And then you go on to college and it's 30. Like, I mean, it's...
but it feels the same. It looks the same.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to slow down, right? Yeah. So we do need to think about, when the street gets narrower, people tend to press on the brake. Okay. It sounds counterintuitive. But it's kind of like the idea of, you really have to think about it for it to make sense. And one example is, the idea of widening a road to include another lane. People always say, well, that'll get rid of traffic. That's never been the case. And why is that? Because when we make another lane, people see that the traffic is going down. So they're actually more likely to buy cars, which puts more cars on the road, which creates more traffic. So we build another lane, which encourages people to buy more cars, which puts more cars on the road, which creates more traffic. Like, we call this the induced cycle of demand.
Yeah.
It's a very common thing. It's happening here in Bloomington, right?
Happens more so in other places. Like Texas is the
true.
Example.
Texas,
it's like the 10 lanes of interstate traffic, and it's like, well,
this is what happened.
Adding 2 more lanes is going to solve that problem.
This is what happened on Meridian in Indianapolis. Like when I first moved with my parents to Indianapolis, on Meridian was a street back then, and now it's a highway, right? And when they added all those lanes and they made it faster to drive, people stopped going on Spring Mill to choose Meridian. I made the same decision, right? But that puts more cars on the Meridian, right? I mean, these small decisions can have big impact. So we just need to start thinking more strategically, I think. You're right. It's more prevalent in other places than it is here. But
we're lucky that we haven't become that dumb yet. If you still can, danger's not over.
It's true.
All right, real quick. We were looking at your LinkedIn a little bit before.
Oh, great! I hope that's a good thing.
It is a good thing.
It looked awful.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
No, we saw that you were a public affairs intern for the U.S. Government and Accountability Office.
That's true.
Or U.S. Government Accountability Office.
Yeah.
What was that like?
That was an amazing experience. So that was, I think, summer of 2021 after my first year. It was pretty eye-opening in a few different ways. You're told when you're growing up that government is so inefficient, and in some ways that was proven to me. In some ways that was not proven to me. In fact, the opposite was proven. Like seeing how hard some of the people there were working, day in, day out, and seeing like how much work they get done in a day is pretty impressive. On the flip side, affecting any kind of change in a government bureaucracy, very difficult. When I was there, we were talking about how to redo our Instagram page, pure public affairs, right? Talking about how to redo an Instagram page. That sounds like something that shouldn't be that hard to do. Like, you make a decision, all right, we want to change it.
And right? The government's like, well, we gotta get
there are tons of
people.
There are tons of restrictions that are put in place for that.
Yeah.
But seeing the work they do, if you're not familiar with the U.S. Government Accountability Office's work, they are the supreme auditing institution for the U.S. government, and their job is to find the areas in which the U.S. government is wasting money. And they sometimes turn a return on investment of like 300 to 1 for every $1 invested. It's a pretty incredible margin. And seeing interviewing these people, a lot of them, by the way, GAO, one of the most recruited schools at the GAO, Indiana University. While I was there, I would believe there were multiple interns from IU, and we did a meeting of some other IU alumni who work at the GAO. There are tons of IU alumni who are there. And so that was just something that was really cool.
Nice.
That is cool.
Yeah, one foot in the door already.
Yeah, no, everyone should go work at the GAO. No, everyone would love it.
Yeah. Because I've worked with government a little bit, and like being inside of it is way different than seeing it from the outside. You're
For
like,
sure.
wow, these people are like coming in and they're really working hard every day, and sometimes they don't have enough resources, sometimes they do, but they're always trying their best, and the process might be stupid, but they're still trying to hurry it along as best as they can.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally agree.
Is it a lot of SPIA students, do you think?
There's a Kelly students.
No, it is mostly SPIA. As far as the people I met who were there were all
Okay.
SPIA. A lot of master's students do internships at the GAO, because a lot of their work. I don't want to say it. They require a master's of public affairs for a lot of the work they do.
Yeah.
Or a master's in other areas. They have a lot of statisticians who work there. They have a lot of mathematics majors that work there. But in and out of the public affairs team, which was huge. There were a lot of IU alumni who do work there. It's actually really fun to go on LinkedIn and do a search. And you on LinkedIn, if you do an advanced search, you can search all the people who work at a company or an organization or a government entity who went to a specific school.
Yeah.
Try that for IU sometime. It'll be fun for you.
Well,
Yeah.
we should wrap up here,
Yeah,
I
we
think.
should. Thanks for being on the show.
Well, thank you for having me. I know I go on and on, so I appreciate
Well, I think it was fun.
your having me.
Yeah,
I
thank you
enjoyed
for
it.
being on.
This was David Wolfe Bender. Next week we'll have
Coach
Dylan.
Mark Dillon, Little 500 coach, as well as Tyler.
Yep,
Definitely.
more little 500 talk, because we haven't had enough
So-
this year.
So look forward to that.
Yep. Thanks for being on.
Thank you.
Hope everyone has a great weekend, and tune in next week. And you're listening to 99.1 WIUX LP Bloomington.